Good morning, everybody. Nick Camarata, right here, right now, in the present time now. Welcome back to another episode, and as usual, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest, an amazing person. Like usual, we don't know a lot, and we'll discover together. But we finally have a hero in the room. I can't wait to introduce you, Penelope Camarata. Welcome in.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good to be here.
We have a little quick chat about her, and I know you deal with trauma, with um, helping people trying to deal with trauma, trying to open that. We talk really tiny about wounds and how can recover all that. But tell us a little bit of your story. I'm curious to know how do you end up on that kind of field?
Um, well, I ended up with in the EMS field because I grew up around emergencies. My mom was a type 1 brittle diabetic. I ended up being a child of a type 1 diabetic as well. I got to see kind of the the dynamic, I guess, of seeing it from a child's perspective of EMS coming in to save my mom. I seen it from my own family when, as my uncle was an EMT and actually had to take my mom to a major hospital. We lived in rural America, so uh, a major hospital was like 3 hours away. So they had the life flight her. So he was on the chopper with her. So he kind of knew and experienced the family dynamic and the professional all at the same time. And after that, he decided to go into the sheriff's department. He actually left EMS after that. So, and I never really understood the concept of why he left. It wasn't really talked about. And then as I became a mom to a diabetic, it was like, okay, this is stressful. um, Dealing with it as a kid, it was in the periphery. I dealt with it, but it was in a different perspective. And then as a mom, it became even more of a unique perspective. And I came to Philadelphia, PA. I was originally going to actually be a Philly cop and ended up going into EMS instead. And it it felt more natural to go into EMS.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a close friend of mine who was a Philly cop took his own life. And I found out about it 2 days before I graduated from EMT school. So it really hit me. And I had to learn how to compartmentalize something personal like that and put it on the shelf and get my EMT certification and suck it up basically and get through my national registry, get through my licensure, get all that. But then I got to I ended up feeling the impact of it about 3 years later because I never talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it put me into a deep hole of depression and where um, there was a saying that there's 9 gates of hell, Dante's hell. I was at that eighth gate, about to hit the ninth gate, when I started just out of curiosity looking for things to help me out because I was going bonkers. And everywhere I looked, there was, all these therapists. They had rehab for first responders and veterans, but it was for alcohol or drug abuse. It was not for anything else. And
Mm-hmm.
I find out that, yeah, there's all this great help out there for first responders and veterans, and we support them and all that. And it's like, it's that's fantastic, but I don't have an addiction of
It's not alcohol. It's
an
not drugs.
emotional
Yeah.
mental problem. It's not always about, yeah, exactly. It's not always about alcohol and drugs. So it's like, who's out there can help me with what I'm dealing with emotionally and mentally? And there's nobody. So I
Wow.
basically just started kind of doing like I got interested in Reiki and creative journaling. I bombed that, but I learned enough that I took it the art therapy part because I love creating myself in my off time. I took my art therapy to a different type of journaling and therapy because I started getting tattoos. of my
Okay.
friend, of his end of watch date, his badge number, and that actually helped me through different stages of the grief process. I'd get a tattoo, and then I would go through about 6 months of grieving and trying to sort through that emotion that was coming up and dealing with that. And then I get another tattoo because it was the right time to get the next level. And so I have 4 tattoos on my left arm. It's almost the full sleeve. It's almost done. And it it helped me get through a lot of it because then I started blogging about why I got the tattoos,
Mm-hmm.
what the significance was, because people have tattoos for different reasons. A lot of it's just for show. Mine literally was a process of looking through Pinterest at these tattoos. And it's like, what is speaking to me that actually resonates, that actually, where am I at emotionally and mentally, that signifies it's time for me to get the next tattoo for the next level of that grieving process. And I have a teardrop with a thin line, um, blue line through it, and his end of watch date on the inside of my wrist. I ended up getting a rosary bracelet looking thing on my left wrist with charms hanging down, um, like that.
Oh,
So it has the Star of Life, which is me, his badge number, which is on the police badge, and the Maltese cross was actually done at the same time of my. I don't know if you can see it, but it's my feather tattoo with the semicolon and the word "live" in it, and that was done actually around the time of the 17th anniversary of the Twin Towers, and
wow.
which
Okay.
was a big significant thing for me. The number 17, especially. My friend took his life on my daughter's 17th birthday, on my youngest daughter's 17th birthday. So that was tough. On top of that, so I had to work through a lot on that part. And every time I would get discouraged, I would look at that tattoo, the feather, and that word "live" is hitting me in the face, and that's what kept me going. That's what kept me going and trying to find resources of trying to get out of this depression I'd been in, with nobody to talk to, and ended up getting into Reiki, became a Reiki master teacher, and
Wow.
realized that the more I started doing this stuff, and like the Reboot Recovery Program, that's for first responders, which is a 13-week non-denominational Bible study thing for first responders or family members of first responders. It all actually started tying in together and working, without me realizing. It's like, oh, I'm actually starting to feel better. And I was getting so excited about it, I was telling everybody about it and other first responders I worked with. And a, a couple of them were very supportive with what I was doing and surprised because they were in the same boat I was with. There are no resources. No, yeah, we have the mental health group at the fire department, but everybody knows as soon as you walk in the door, oh, you're there to see them, and then the rumors start. It's the
Mm-hmm.
high
Yeah.
school all over again type thing. And that lack of trust comes from their coworkers saying, well, if they're going in there, we can't trust them to cover our six. We can't trust them to go into a fire with us, which is total boo-ha.
Yeah.
Because just because you want to have a healthy mental health or emotional health does not mean that you're weak. And there's a lot of stigma with that with first responders and military. That's just you're supposed to be tough. It's the good old boys club of back in the day when you sucked it up.
Yeah.
You're tough. You're a Marine. Marines don't cry and yada yada yada.
All that
And
kind of
it's
stuff. Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But you got to realize, why are there so many in the line of duty suicides? Um, Police officers take their lives on the duty with their handgun that they're issued. Firefighters hang themselves, with rope that they have on the truck. EMS usually are the drug overdoses because they have it accessible to them.
Mm-hmm.
they take their own life with what's accessible to them and what's familiar with them. And if there's so many of these suicides, then obviously we have a mental health problem going on in this industry that they don't know how to acknowledge or address. And part of what I like to do or want to do is by exposing myself out there about my grief and trauma and how I healed myself and how I continue to heal myself. It's not just a one and done. It's a constant thing because you know, things are always coming up, past issues that you didn't think about or other triggers or memories and stuff like that. But once you have the tools on board, you know how to work with it then. You know how to work through
Yeah.
that without going off the deep end type thing to where you can actually be Humpty Dumpty that gets put back together again and say, hey, you know what? I may have fallen down and broken into a bunch of pieces, but I am put back together again. I may have a few scars, but and I may be, whole, and I may have scars, but I'm on the right track. And becoming more self conscious and self aware that if I'm having a bad day or if I have more than one bad day, I need to start figuring out why. It's
Hmm.
back to step one and finding out what's causing that unresolved. And it's always an unresolved issue that's causing the problems that we don't realize was there because there's so many out there.
Yeah, yeah. Almost a checklist, a self checklist to see
It is.
how we're doing today. It's fascinating how um you exposing yourself, of course, can give us all the insight of this new world. First thing first, thank you so much for your work. This is such an incredible work, and almost like all the behind the scenes that people, can't really see every day unless it's something not good is happening. You
Right.
call the cop not just to say, "Hey, thank you for today." No, you call him when you need it. And
Uh-huh.
then if everything goes well, you can say thanks. But it's everyday job for you. So I'm extremely grateful for all your work because I don't think we say enough. So I'm just taking my part to say that. And
Thank
second of
you.
all, thank you for sharing all that and thinking of how hard can be, just thinking, imagine how hard can be. His that could be, the mental issues can be correlated of all the things that you see in the job, or is something that can everybody can experience. What could be the
Um,
difference between a
it
normal me and you?
it could be for everybody because nobody has the perfect childhood. And a lot of the root issues that people have when it comes to triggers, anxiety, depression, um, social issues, whether it's even addictions, um, you've got to go back to the root of the problem. You can't just put a band aid on, oh, you have an addiction, go to rehab, stop drinking. Okay. But what's causing it? Doing doing any kind of therapy, like whether it's cognitive behavior therapy or even the EMDR with the tapping. I can tell you right now, as a first responder, tapping really bothers me. It actually sets me off. It's a trigger for me.
Hmm.
I found that out the hard way. So I know that EMDR is something that is soothing. It like sound waves, different variants of megahertz actually calm me down, and that has to do with Reiki, which is energy flow. Everybody responds differently to different megahertz of music. It all is actually soothing depending on your state of mind. Some
Hmm.
people like to, I know a lot of men like to play the war games, and that actually decompresses them. But at the same time, when they become obsessed with that, nothing, now we have an addiction. a habit can turn into an addiction. We all have habits, good or bad. I mean, it's just that's who we are. What we choose to do with it is something else entirely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And every time that's the key is to create a good addiction, good routine, good habits,
Right,
because we our brain is wired to create patterns. So we are our brain love predictability. So you can always, predict what's the danger and try to avoid it. So that's why we create
right,
routines. And creating bad routines like eating ice cream for breakfast or having even something more, serious like, drug abuse and all that kind of interesting stuff, that create bad routines. I have a question since you go deep into that. Is been and this is my observation. I was talking with a coworker yesterday, and he wasn't doing fine. And slowly, I took him lunch and started talking. And his daughter, he's now doing fine mentally, and he went in depression. And he's slowly learning this new thing because a lot of people think that depression is something, if you have a broken home or something going on in your life, you can get depression. And I was my thoughts too. But it's since it's kind of almost new to us, we don't know a lot like alcohol addiction or drug addiction that we can, we experience more. This is more what's hiding behind all this drug addiction and alcohol addictions that we never really investigate too much. And we were talking, and you say we had a fantastic home and nothing really, in just a normal life, but her daughter was in big hole, and then huge depression a few years back, and now it's almost went back. So is it kind of now getting more common, having this kind of depression, especially on the in the younger crowd and the teenager, compared to the past?
it is, and there's a lot of factors to it. There's even though Dad may perceive this as there's a perfect home life, the the teenager may not perceive it as a perfect home life. Um, you've got friends that are also teenagers with raging hormones and that are going everywhere. You have cultures, you have not only home culture, but you have school culture and
Mm-hmm.
you have family dynamics and you have school dynamics. And teenagers are kind of the hardest ones right now because they 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 have their mind's not fully developed. They're still processing things. Their bodies are going through so many physical and hormonal changes. They're on the flip side every other day. And all these other influences, including the media, which is an overstimulation as just individually as that, it can really set a person off. Um, Another thing that people don't realize is that we carry in our DNA 5 generations of trauma. So even though mom and dad may not have trauma and it's a perfect home life, grandma or grandpa may have suffered from a depression and it was labeled as something else or undiagnosed, or they had trouble socializing and covered it up or by doing other things, or saying that, well, grandma was just a homebody, she didn't like going out. Oh, okay. Um, there's a sign of right there of
Yeah.
depression. So everything was labeled differently based on the time generation and what what you want other people to perceive it as. No one wants to say that they're bipolar. No one wants to say they're multi personality or they have it in the family. They don't want to say they have a bunch of loony bins in the family. It's like the family dark secrets type thing, but everyone carries 5 generations of trauma in their DNA. And in order to break that chain of, this teenager who is chronically depressed, there's, I don't know if there's any significant confirmation that it is depression or what's causing it. But one thing that can happen is that in order to break that cycle chain so that it doesn't pass on to her kids, is to actually change the mindset, change the behavior, change the routines. If she doesn't know why she's depressed, you know, maybe looking at, um, what's her social life like? Is she always constantly home? Changing, going out for like a jog with mom in the morning, or changing that routine so that it's not the same thing every day can get people out of their depression, but it can also change their mindset. It can change those habits, as you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about, to something positive, that they know that if like they're getting that mindset of being down in the dumps, they know they can go to run and it's going to clear the cobwebs out of their head. Find a way to clear that thought out of the head is a step in the right direction of changing that DNA. Because when she has kids, that child will still get some of that 5 generational DNA, but she's going to get the new stuff from mom. So that new stuff will be integrated, and it can eventually overtake the bad stuff. It's a process of identifying it, acknowledging it, and then changing it. If you're
Mm-hmm.
willing to change it, make that change. Even the people around you will notice, and they can start to change as well, especially if they have some of the same habits as that other person does. So it's kind of interesting that if a parent does it, the children follow suit without realizing it. It's almost like puppet strings on a marionette, but it's the good puppet strings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that changes the DNA too. That they're breaking that chain, and that's the thing, is that there's like histories of abuse and alcoholism. It's like when you finally say, you know what, this isn't going to happen to me. I've had enough, and you stop and you move away from situations that are abusive or that are alcoholic, or you stop drinking because of the alcoholism. That changes the DNA too. I had a maternal grandfather who was a functioning alcoholic. So I have alcoholism in my DNA chain. My paternal grandmother was an alcoholic, and she actually wrapped her car around a telephone pole when my dad was 15. So I have that alcoholism in my family history, but I'm not an alcoholic. I choose to drink, but I also choose when to stop. So that breaks that chain, so that
Mm-hmm.
my kids, who, even though they were raised with alcohol in the house, they never tried to steal it ever. And that was, and part of it was also how I taught them, was that I'm not locking this up, but I will know if you get into it. Because if you always lock something up around a teenager, they're going to find a way to break in,
Oh yeah.
because they want to know why is it locked up. And my ex-husband he grew up with an alcoholic father who, they locked the cabinet. No one can get into it. They broke the lock. There were 6 of them, 6 boys. They broke the lock, and they got into it all the time. And I'm like, okay, those are choices, and that's part of that DNA. And it's not because dad's an alcoholic they did it. It's because it's in their DNA they did it. So he's like, we need to lock the alcohol up. And I'm like, no, if you guys broke into a cabinet, these kids are going to do it too. I mean, hello, they're my kids.
Yeah, yeah,
Of
yeah,
course
yeah.
they're going to do it. And once you take that stigmatism of mystery out of things for kids, that curiosity goes away. And that changes the dynamic of how they react to things, because then it's not a surprise anymore, or it's not a big deep dark secret, and they got to find out what it is, and that's what
What
gets
it
them into
yes,
trouble.
yes. The excitement of
So it's,
what's that secret that I want to know,
yeah,
even by
or pushing the envelope. It's like, oh, I'm going to do something bad, and maybe I'll get caught, maybe I won't. Let's hope I don't. And then if they don't, they brag. If they do, they whine about it. It's all part of growing up.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Well, I move a little bit towards to everybody issues because this I have an amazing conversation with this coworker, And my answer in the conversation was that since we are in the different society compared where he grew up and I grew up and we grew up together. And since now it's easier to get access to different things, I told him that it gets the value get restrained, so people were looking for something more than that it can be found. Like I was explaining, when we grew up, we didn't even, if you grew up in Antarctica, there's no sun for a month. And then when there's the sun, you can stop there and see the sunrise because it's something beautiful. You
Yeah.
never see that for a month or something. The same as me when I was growing up, I didn't get a chance to have any money. I was always struggling to get money when I first got my job. It was my paycheck. It was literally it was literally $1 an hour, but I was so happy because I was excited because I created something. The same when you
Yeah.
created something. I was playing with my brother with creating a toys because we couldn't afford toys. So that creating a toys was the best thing for me. Right now in this society, since everything is more accessible, you go internet and you and Amazon, and half a day later you have a toy. That toy lose the value compared to me building a toy, spending an whole afternoon to create this toy and then can play with it. Was my answer in somehow, and that's what I think, what I believe is now we have more frequent because since there's an hour history, there's some kind of a depression, addiction, and from the wars, past wars, there is that, but there's something that needs to be triggered in to
Absolutely.
create that. In this society right now, it's helped trigger a lot of this. I have so many friends that use medication, antidepressive. They don't know how to handle the stress. They don't know how to handle trauma. And I want to
Yep.
talk more about trauma. What's trauma and how, you were talking a little bit earlier, the wounds, how you can, nobody wants to show their scarf, how their scar. What what's trauma and how it's the best way to handle? Can you go deep and more in that so we can understand why trauma is bad, what we need to do about it?
Um, Trauma to me is basically, it's an injury, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, even a spiritual injury. You lose faith in something. You have a hardship, and you you stop having faith in whatever spiritual level you're at, whatever your spirituality is. It's called faith. A lot of it is. But trauma is an injury to anything tangible or intangible that affects you. Um, it could be, even when like your own child gets injured or is sick, mom and dad have a trauma too because they're terrified for their child. That is classified as a trauma because their their cortisol levels skyrocket, and
Mm-hmm.
that cortisol is our stressor. If we have too much cortisol in our bodies, we actually have health problems from that, including weight problems, dietary problems, all that sort of thing. So trauma can be anything, mental or physical, especially, but emotionally and spiritually. Working with it by by having that 20-minute consultation with my prospective clients is what figures out and kind of defines what kind of help they need. And my programs vary from the simple to the complex. I mean, literally, like on a couple of them, I literally can have a client for twice in a month, and I'm done with them. But I do have a program that actually works with traumatic stress disorder and complex post traumatic stress disorder. That is a year long progress for the entire thing. It takes a year because you literally go into a lot of stuff. You dig through all of that rubbish, that garbage, that collapsed building, and you dig to the bottom. to where you're going to find skeletons, you're going to find ugly stuff. There's no way around it. But getting to that ugly stuff and exposing it is what starts the healing process. Because once you identify that, it's not that ugly, and as an adult, I'm looking at it from a different perspective, or even because I'm in a safer environment, so I'm looking at it through a third person perspective versus maybe a child's perspective. It's different because you're more mature now. You're not that young child anymore who relies on a parent or somebody else to protect them. You can now protect your younger self. One of my most common programs that I use is actually healing childhood trauma. And I've worked with a veteran and a first responder. And basically, it's taking them back to their first earliest childhood traumatic memory and what it was. And, basically asking them, you're watching this like it's on a movie screen. So talk me through this incident where, how are you feeling? How old are you? Who's the most likely person that you're going to run to for protection? Like if you're hurt, who would you run to? Are they there now? And then I run into my bedroom and I hide in the closet. That, which is a common one for a young child. And it's like, okay, so walk softly into that bedroom, sit next to that closet door and have a conversation with your younger self to find out what has them scared, what can you do to help them, and then help them. And this is all mental imagery that you're putting this person through. And at the same time that you're putting them through this mental imagery, you're reiterating with them that you're keeping them safe, that they are in a safe place to be able to do this and no harm will come to them. That is one of the biggest fears. It's like almost like reliving a nightmare. You feel like you're actually in that nightmare. You're actually having that exact experience all over again, and that's not the case. With this, we want to actually go back and deal with that trauma and look at that trauma
to actually see it and hear it. And when you tell them that they're in a safe environment, they react differently because they're safe. So they know that nothing could harm them. And that changes the dynamic from being in a nightmare versus observation. So once they're in charge of keeping this young child safe, they get to take them to a safe place that they choose. And then from there, they just work through each traumatic event through their life as they get older into adulthood and so on and so forth. And my veteran that I worked with, 2 sessions with him, and he was on his own, took it from there on his own, and has been doing great with it. And it's because he wanted it so bad. He was almost pushing himself to get through it quickly. And it's something that you can go at your own pace. I mean, it's not like there's a test at the end of it or there's a time limit. But it does give you the skills to actually work through something bad and then say, hey, you know what? I'm not the same person I was when I back then as I am now. I can handle this. And having those little, reaffirmation type things get you through that healing process of opening up that wound, debris it, and saying, okay, I can live with this. It's not going to kill me. I can work through this. I can let this heal now and let it heal. And then if you have a trigger, you can still have triggers after you're completely done, but you're not going to react the same way. That's the great part, is that once you work through the process of dealing with it, acknowledging it, finding out the cause of it, and figuring out a way to fix it. When those triggers do come up, that's like a distant memory. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that when I was a kid, I did it. And it's not a bad memory. It's just, oh yeah, I remember that as a kid. And it's just, and moving on.
Mm-hmm.
It's hello, I'm here. See you later. It's not going to stick around like a long lost relative.
It's not a weight no more. It's released.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So your approach is going to all the trauma in the past and have not you but themselves fix it and trying to release it more than fix it, trying to
Absolutely.
expose it. And I love the way how release it, because I feel like it's almost like a block of energy stuck in somewhere part of our how we're wired, and you unhook and then just completely release all the heavy energy. It's beautiful, but it's a journey that everybody's got to take with themselves. So it can be an
Absolutely.
easy fix. Again, fix is it could be an easy path, or it could be a long and heavy duty one. But um, and this is what's maybe the worst part, because how we can be ready for that. Somebody that
Um,
really needs to be willing to do that.
I'm glad you actually said that. I actually had two clients. One, he was like, I'm ready, let's go, let's get this on. He was ready to do it in the first session. I said, okay, first of all, slow down. You're good. Let's take this one step at a time. Mainly because I didn't know how he was going to react to the first one. And people react differently. And then I had a first responder, an EMT. She actually had a personal trauma that terrified the living daylights out of her. And it actually brought on anxiety attacks when she had to go through the town of this person who in her past had threatened her physical harm. Small town in Maine. So she was doing transports with the ambulance company. She always had to go through that town to get to the next one. And she would have anxiety attacks, literal, and she didn't even have to see the person. She just had to see the
Wow.
town. So it really, really bothered her. And it took me 2 years of talking to her
Wow.
before she was open enough and willing enough to trust me to walk her through the process of this visualization of making sure she was safe. And we didn't even start when she was a child. We started at this exact trauma. So the trauma doesn't always have to be a childhood trauma. It can be the one you remember the most, that sticks out in your mind, that keeps you from going out of your home when you're not at work, that sort of thing. And walked her through it. And we actually had to break it up into 2 sessions because she started going through a panic attack. So we stopped the session, went back to it again the next week, got through it all. And she was out visiting her family a month later in Maine and talked to her family about this person and what had happened to her in the past. They had no idea it had happened
No way.
to her to begin with. And then she realized that she was talking to him about it without freaking out. And she was
Completely
like,
released.
I got a call in. She goes, this is so cool. She goes, I actually talked about it. Didn't even realize she was talking about it, and felt fine afterwards. And she was totally stoked. She was like practically jumping out of her skin. She was thrilled. Her family was ticked off, but they didn't know about it. Brother was mad. The other
Yeah, yeah,
family
yeah.
dynamic, but it was in a good
Yeah.
mood that they were upset because they couldn't protect her. They couldn't keep her safe, and they didn't know about it, and they were kept in the dark. And I'm like, well, that's on you, hon. My job is done. And literally since then, I talked to her. I think I've talked to her. I think haven't talked to her for like about a month now. And before that, it was a couple of months. So she's not demanding that I talk to her every 2 weeks or every week with a 3-hour conversation. I can now get back to, I guess you say I can get back to my life. But it was a weekly 3-hour phone call sometimes.
Wow.
Talking her down, there would be like a car backfire. She would be on the phone and we're talking all hours of the day and night. When she moved to Indiana, there were like drive-by shootings and stuff like that around the apartment complex. And after we finally got through that session of and because that kept triggering her, all those gunshots. And so once we got through that process, she calmed down a lot. She didn't like Indiana, hated it, and moved, but she could handle it, and she could actually talk about what had triggered all of her EMS problems. And I could definitely tell that there was a huge weight off of her shoulders, because she definitely was in a better mood the last time I talked to her. She's happily living down in Florida, and her and her son just bought a house down there. Her mom's down there. She's happy. She's doing way better. But it did affect her health. It really affected her health a lot. She developed her diabetes, what took a turn for the worse. She had the weight gain, hospitalized for depression, anxiety attacks. She was a mental, emotional mess, all because of this one situation. But it took her time. It took her enough time. I think it wasn't exactly trusting me with it. It was trusting herself not to react in a bad way. And trust herself that she can get through it, have the confidence to do it. And that's what it is. If it takes 1 month, fine. If it takes 2 years to get someone to that point, I'm willing to work with them, because it's not something that I prescribe meds for. I do not prescribe medications to anything. I am a life coach. I am not here to medicate you. The only thing I recommend is, like herbal teas and stuff like that. I'm more of the homeopathic type thing, aromatherapy, because a lot of things can actually help through that to calm a person down, to open their minds, to get them to sleep better. I've had several clients actually use my tea for their sleepless nights, and it works great. Reviews. So it's like, what? I'm more for that than I am for the pain meds, because pain meds cover up the pain, and I can understand, we do have to have it, but it shouldn't be a crutch for especially the mental health, especially the depression and the anxiety, because I know there's a lot of things out there that can be much better. And getting rid of that, or finding ways to work with it or work through it, is a much better alternative than someone with a prescription.
That's fascinating. You're totally speaking my language now. I'm last time I took something, I didn't have like LASIK surgery. I didn't get any ibuprofen and whatever they give you to relax yourself. I don't like the idea to put in my body something that can alterate my trying to block instead of fixing stuff.
Right.
Yes, I think meds are fantastic to give yourself a break. Like, because you are at the point that you can't handle no more. Okay, you deserve a break right now. But you need to confront that. You need to solve that. You need to get out the meds and figure out what's wrong, what's going on, not what's wrong, what's going on with the situation. But the problem is, I see so many people, and then I think it's very, very easy to get meds. That's the other issues. If you have
certain meds is too easy, and then other meds you have to fight for.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I have a little headache. Here's some pills for headache, but what caused the headache? I have no idea, but I don't have headache right now. So resolved. Actually, you didn't resolve anything. You just put a big, big pause on the problem, and it will show up later, a little bit bigger, and then the bigger become the monster, the harder it will be to fight it. So I'm happy that you agree and you deal with medication, so that they're very helpful and save lives. And but how we use it, it needs to be certified, needs to be correct way. I know a lot of dear friends, they're going through stress at work and everything, and just like, yeah, I have some Adderall, I have some stuff that just use it. And then just like, I don't think that should be normal. I don't
Yeah,
think that should
it's
be.
a little too normal.
Yes, yes. I'm old school. If I have a headache, I want to have my red tea and a good sleep night, and then be all fixed up. The other things I want to talk to, and then I'm happy that you brought up meds. It's about um diet, what we eat, how, because I believe there's different way we can influence our body. One is the physical trauma. The other one could be chemical, what we ingest, what poisons. It can alterate our physiology. What we eat right now, especially, well, I grew up in a farm, so I was access to an amazing fresh
Oh, okay.
food, fresh meat,
Yes.
and it was fabulous. I grew up with so many so much good stuff that now it's a little bit hard for me to figure out the best
Yeah.
way to handle here going to the supermarket. Um, but I read about some colorant that made it kids depressed or angry. There's some, I think, what kind of whatever cereal they were using, the red color, that addictive there was just kind of
The red dye, yeah.
the red dye. I was just researching, and I was came across this one, was kind of very interesting, and it's like how fascinating how what we eat can change that. So
Oh,
what
absolutely.
I'm not, nobody will listen my, because I'm not a doctor, I can't speak with it, but I think a good solution for, at least not a solution, a good approach for depression or worsening, I think a nice hot chocolate and a good company with friends, I think will help a lot. I think chocolate, like the good one, the dark chocolate
Yeah.
from Switzerland, not the cheap one. A nice dark chocolate, the Novi dark chocolate from Switzerland, 80% cacao, something like that that can help release all the different chemical. I think will help. Or nice herbal tea or chamomile, something like that. A good salad. How can help a good salad get those fibers? I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm not. Nobody will trust my thoughts, but I want to hear from you
Uh,
that you know more.
okay, so I've been doing this Ayurveda nutrition course, and basically what it is, it's basically an Indian Asian diet. And what it is they actually, you go through, each body is different, chemical makeup, just our entire DNA dynamic is all ours. It's unique. Our blood types are unique.
Mm-hmm.
There are different foods specific for each person based on different body types, body makeup, your habits. And what it does is it actually goes through and you do like a body scan of your habits, hot and cold versus spicy or sweet, different things of likes and dislikes and what your habits are. And what we do is we put together a nutrition plan that actually is customized for that client.
Wow.
um, One thing that I know that's important is, like, certain blood types cannot be vegan. you It actually makes them sicker. My son is O positive and he tried to go vegan. Bless his heart. He tried it. He tried it for 3 weeks. I'll give him that. And it literally made him sick.
Wow.
By going vegan, found out that O positive blood type people cannot go vegan. They have to have red meat because of the
Interesting.
red blood cells in the beef meat. There's something in their the red meats DNA. I don't know if it's the DNA or the blood system, but their blood cells or something, or the meat that actually keeps us healthy. So anyone that's so positive cannot go vegan. So I looked at him and I
That's
said, "You can't go
fantastic.
vegan." He's like,
I
"What crap?" And I said, "Eat a piece of meat." And so he did. He fixed himself a hamburger. Within a half hour, he actually felt better.
Oh my goodness. This is I never know.
So,
I think I'm O plus as well. So that's explained a lot.
so he knows that he can go about 2 weeks pretty much being vegetarian or vegan, but by
Mhm.
that begin between the beginning and the middle of that third week, he's got to eat a red meat protein or he gets sick.
Wow.
Plain and simple. So that's what he did. And he's like, "This isn't fair." And I said, "This is called being a human being. Your DNA does not like being vegan, and and your blood type is the reason why." And it comes down to blood type. That's all it was. It was something so simple that once we figured out the cause, he was able to adjust enough that he could still do his vegan thing, get that red meat occasionally, like the FDA says, and he's fine. But more
Mhm.
than that, and he really wasn't. He never really was a big a red meat eater anyway. Just
Mhm.
growing up, he was never that way. But as he got older, he's just like, "Well, I'm just going to go straight." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. That's not going to work." And it didn't. But I know that I can do the same thing. I can eat chicken, turkey, pork, whatever for like 2.5 weeks, but I got meat within the third week, or I get sick. I get actually wore down. So I have to remember my own dictate that I told my son, which was, "You got to eat red meat every third week." So, in doing that, I actually feel better. And it has to do with that blood type. It's something very simple, but can actually lay you out flat and sick if you're not careful.
I love
And
when
it's
there's
simple.
science behind it. I love when there's science
Yes.
behind it. It's a
Yes.
blood type, it's not ideology, it's not political, it's not that. We need to
It's
be
not your
good in ourselves.
imagination.
Exactly. And you say something
Yeah.
very, very important, I think, that I want to extend a little bit. Everybody's different. Everybody is their DNA. Each one of us, it's unique. So when
Yes.
you hear those kind of diets and online, you hear this one and that. You gotta eat this superfood. You gotta eat this thing to feel
Mhm.
better. Everybody is different. You need to try them all and then find yours. This is what I always tell
Absolutely.
everybody. That's why I always go looking for new things to improve myself. I believe I found my quote to be healthy. But it's fascinating how everybody gets stuck on the idea that you gotta follow a guru, somebody that knows that
Right.
can follow his diet. Yes, it worked well for him, but you're not him or
Exactly.
her, and then and just like, what's yours? What's going on with you? What's your trauma? They're different than yours, and well, your DNA is different than
Yeah.
yours, and your habits.
Yep.
There's people that wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym. If I woke up at 4 a.m.,
Exactly.
I definitely not going to gym. I will read a book. I will love to read a book at 4 a.m. in the morning, not going to gym. So everybody's different. And I want to
Yep.
specify that you tell him, especially on diet, they say that all the Mediterranean diet, it's the best one, but you
Yes.
maybe find the vegan choices are the best for you or not. Just you do you, like the usual.
Well, one of the things actually that I'm actually working with my nonprofit on is, or my nonprofit is working on right now, is looking at physical property in Eastern Oregon, where I'm from. Now, when I
Mm.
say Eastern Oregon to the viewers here, that does not mean Portland, Oregon. Okay,
That's
um, we we don't classify Oregon Portland as part of our state. What it is Portland and the rest of the state. Portland is very liberal and very political, and the rest of the state is conservative and you know believe in Second Amendment rights. Yeah, we're very vocal about our views. And we don't like the politicians of Portland or Salem for that matter. Portland is the only major city in Oregon. So when I talk Eastern Oregon, I'm talking an hour away from the Snake River that runs the entire length of Idaho State and Washington and Oregon. So the Pacific Northwest. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at property actually to have a farm out there that's going to be a working farm that is specifically going to be designed for military frontline workers and first responders to do an Airbnb on, have conferences on. It will be a working farm to where if they want a vacation there and actually when they want to decompress or reground, they can actually work on the farm and or the greenhouse that I'm going to be setting up, because I've already established a greenhouse here in Philadelphia. Well, it's a garden center. It's an online one. But the one thing that I've noticed, and this last fall, I worked at a remote small garden center in Philadelphia. One of my yard guys was a retired cop, and the he liked it there so much. It was calm. It was peaceful. He could sweep the yard of all the straw, not deal with the customers if he didn't want to. And it was soothing to him. It calmed him down. It relaxed him. And that's what my goal is for this working farm, is for these first responders and military to get back to the basics where they don't have to get up at the crack of dawn. They're not on a 4-on 4-off schedule. They're not doing a 10-mile run with backpack on their shoulders first thing in the morning. They're not doing PT. They have no schedule, but there's activities for them to do, including day activities like hiking, different activities around the area. Eastern Oregon is full of outdoor activities. If you can't find an outdoor activity to do, you're not looking hard enough. That's as simple as that. That's how it is out there. You know, there's skiing in the wintertime, snowshoeing, there's trail riding, there's things to go visit. But the main thing that is on there is this greenhouse that actually is going to be, part of it's going to be a micro greenhouse to grow microgreens, which are a healthy alternative. And this Airbnb is going to actually be a barn dominium with a conference center attached to it. So different organizations can come in, do their conferences there, and enjoy themselves while they're on the farm. You know, from down on the farm is really true. To where people can actually relax, and if they want to interact with the animals, there's eventually going to be canine therapy there.
Oh, that's amazing too.
As well as the equine therapy with the horses. That is a big hit with veterans in Montana and Arizona. There's actually ranches for those, but they're for men only. Women are not allowed there. I don't understand it. I don't question it. It's just like, okay, just moving on from that to where this will offer the service for both men and women. One thing that a lot of these first responder groups forget are the spouses and significant others. One thing I do offer is basically it's a support group for first responders, significant others, and or spouses and family members. They go home to these people when they're off duty. And a lot of marriages have failed from these types of families. And a lot of it comes down to they struggle to communicate with their spouse because they don't want to talk about their day, what happened on the job, and which I can understand. Some days you need to vent and you need to talk about it, but a lot of them don't want to tell their spouses because they don't want to bring that ugliness into the home. And here's where I disagree with them. Okay. Now, I'm not the normal person here. I disagree with them on that because in order for your spouse or significant other to support you, they have to kind of understand and know about that ugly side, because that helps them understand their first responder or veteran a lot better when they know, this is the kind of situation they went through today. Now I know how to support them. Either, cooking them a hot meal and giving them quiet time is what they need, or because it was like, one house fire after another, or one emergency call. So, sirens are going all the time. So they need that peace and quiet.
They need to quiet. Yeah.
That if it's a traffic cop and he had a busy day, leave him alone in his office to decompress with music on, or even if it's sports, don't bug him about the sports channel, because to him it's really white noise.
Yeah.
Because
distraction.
It's not that he's actually watching or listening to the game. It's just noise to help him decompress. It's to help keep those other voices out of his head. And, let him go to the gym, and if he doesn't want to go to the gym with you, they're just different tips and tricks for the support members that, if he promised to do something with you, make a compromise jar. Different tips and tricks for these spouses and significant others that, you got your spouse home that night. Physically, mentally, he's not there yet. Mentally, he's in another place, and here's how you can help him mentally come back to you during his off time. A lot of responses from first responders is, I used to have habits, I used to have hobbies, I don't anymore. I go home, I crash, or I hide away, or I sit my butt in the armchair and I have the TV on the entire time I'm off, and then I go right back to work.
Yeah.
I used to love to fly fish and do hobbies around the house, putter around the house, do things, and doesn't do that anymore. He just sits in front of the TV and just zones out. And it's like, okay. When you start losing your hobbies and you start ignoring your interests, and that spouse is going to notice, and that spouse is going to feel like, well, he's ignoring me because I'm just an interest. He's not interested. He, she, whatever, that's a lot of times where you tend to have those extramarital affairs. And then the communication breaks down. Even with the kids, when the kids are in trouble, they're going to go to the other spouse, because the spouse that's the first responder veteran isn't home that often. And when they are home, they're not home. So they're going to go to the one person who they can go to, and they know they can wear them down.
Yeah.
Granted, kids know which is the easy parent, which isn't. I mean, that's just a given fact. But kids have a hard time with this first responder parent, because they don't know how to be around them. First responders and veterans don't trust very easily, even their own family members. They start treating them like criminals. They start, questioning everything, especially the cop families. Not so much the fire and EMS or dispatch, but there's still that level of trust that goes away, because it's like, you question everything. I can tell you right now, every firefighter, every EMS, first responder, military, we all lie. Really, we all lie. We all lie because we have heard so many lies from people that we help.
Oh, yeah.
We're there to help them. And you'd be surprised the stories we get for how someone got injured in a car accident, why they're calling 911. The list goes on. And so we learn to basically question everybody. At that point, it's to like, okay, are they really telling the truth, or are they giving me a line? And that's not good.
You start to work at home, basically.
Exactly. And granted, we have professions that are not the typical clock in and clock out 9 to 5, Monday through Friday or whatever. But even when we're off duty, we're not really off duty. It's just something that will always be ingrained into us. We can be retired, and if an emergency happens, guess who's going to show up? Or if the emergency happens when you're at an event, you're going to be wandering over there to check it out. That's just us. once you're a first responder, you're always a first responder.
Oh yeah. No, I deeply. I'm amused because a lot of people start a job because they want a paycheck. A lot of people, they do that for a different reason. First responder, they don't get paid enough, no matter how much you paid it. It's not never gonna be enough. So it's not for the money. It's not because there's a lot of vacation, a lot of no, they work 12 hours shift. It's incredible many amount of hours. It's not because it's an easy job, because I think it's the hardest one. You can fighter. You don't do nothing for 9 hours and then you get into a fire,
Yep.
literally. So it's crazy. So be first responder, it's just really a call, and it needs to be helped a lot, not because they need it, but because the world around it's different. So it needs to find a good transition to still be a human and still do your job, fulfill your call. So what could be a very nice, quick way to force responder to decompress? What could be a very nice trick if somebody's listening right now? What could be a good one? Mine, when I come back to work, I like to watch for 10 minutes, stupid videos on Facebook. That I saw that helped me a lot, like completely decompress. I'm sitting on my toilet, scrolling those stupid videos for literally 10, 15 minutes. And then I realize I don't really even look in it. It's like, oh, I'm decompressed. I can go there and then enjoy the movie, whatever it's with my wife. So what could be something? I know it could be, each person is different, but it could be something in common or a routine or something everybody can do.
I know that when I've had a really stressful day and I've like an annoying coworker, bless her heart, she really gets on my nerves. I become hypervigilant and I get antsy. So basically, as soon as I hit my apartment door, I go take a scalding hot shower.
Ooh.
And wash away all the stress. I imagine all of the stress, all of the agitation, all of the moodiness, the bad things that have happened. They're all going down that drain with water. And it takes a good 20 minutes. And then I finally can take some deep cleansing breaths and actually feel like I've calmed down. And once I calm down, then I can focus on getting something to eat or getting ready for bed and just snuggling into my bed with my movies or catch up on my emails. Have a normal conversation with my roommate without snapping their head off, or unloading on them, which has been known to happen. But that 20-minute shower of just not the only thought is everything negative is going down that drain.
Yeah.
And once that happens and you start to feel better, you can just feel your body relaxing. You're good.
Wow. I don't have a stressful job, but I can try that instead of watching videos. But I love the idea.
You're already in the
because the
bathroom.
washing.
You're already in. Yeah,
Sorry.
you're already in the bathroom. I mean, you might as well use the shower.
I shower, and then, no, I like the idea to wash off all the stuff that happened, because it can be even, it can be, you go inside a people's home, so it could be, it feel, that the kind of whatever it is on you, so you wash it off mentally, physically. It's a good
Everything
thing.
has energy. Everything has energy, no matter whether we touch it or just everything.
Even thinking about it's energy.
Absolutely. And it has a lot of it has to do with Reiki. Reiki works on energy levels, on energy. Everybody has it. You can walk up to a person and say, just by looking at him, this is a great person, very kind, very generous. Or you can walk up to a person and say, what, I'm already angry and I haven't even met this person. That person is giving off negative vibes or bad vibes, or just him as a person is a bad person. I mean, there's so many things about that, but to back off from that person or not to stay around that person very long. But you still have that that agitated feeling, some of that energy has transferred onto you, and you're carrying it around on your clothes. You're carrying it around on your skin. When we talk to people through the phone, we still are hearing that energy. We're still receiving that energy. So that gets into us internally. When we don't have time to take a break between people, it builds up. And when we touch things that, or go into a room that has a bad vibe to it, you know, a lot of negative things have happened in that room, whether it could be like a verbal altercation, it could just be people in bad moods.
Mm-hmm.
Everything holds energy that we possess, and whether it's animate or inanimate. So getting that shower and mentally clearing your mind and clearing off that energy from your skin by just drowning it with water, and imagining that circling that drain is a great way to get rid of everything you've collected from the day and just wash it away. It really, I learned that going through my Reiki classes, to be a teacher. And I never really understood it, because as a kid, I could pick up vibes really easily about people. I knew what they were like. I knew what they were. I could tell if there was an abusive husband there with a wife. It was just an abusive situation, which really bothered me as a kid growing up, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm just weird. And nobody believed me. My dad thought I was odd, which I know I'm odd, but that's beside the point. So, but as a kid, it was like, really, it was just disconcerting. And kids are great for picking up vibes, and so are animals. They will pick up you. If a dog barks and growls at somebody, you know they're not
You
going to
know
like
it's
them. There's
something,
something
yeah.
wrong. There's a reason. And that's because they sense that energy. They're more open-minded. And once you open your mind and clear your mind of doubt and what everybody says, or stigmas about being able to sense that, or understand the intangibles, you can pick up a lot and you can discard a lot, more easily, because once you open up your mind to the fact that there are intangible things around us that affect us, just good or bad, it doesn't make us weird. It just makes us more aware of our surroundings, which a lot of people have lost. You know, due to the electronic age, we become desensitized from so much that we've lost our perception of being a human being. We've let other things take over that role, and we need to own that and to get that back. We need to get that power back, because once we get that power back, that makes us a better human being on all levels, not just, you know, ego is the only thing that really shouldn't matter. But our perception of being a better person, just, you're more aware of your surroundings. You know, you have more compassion for people. You have more compassion for
present.
yourself. You know, you have more pride. You have a better understanding and outlook of what's expected of you, and you're more accepting of it. You know, ego is just arrogance. It's just negativity. You know, you can have an ego of, yeah, I am great at my job. But when you say I'm the best at my job, or I'm better than everybody else, then we got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But ego is also self-confidence. You know, that's the positive side of that ego, is that self-confidence. If you have that inside of you, and you are, you make yourself proud, and you focus on you as being complete, that expands out to everybody, and people not only notice it, but they will start to emulate that. And that is a good thing too, because at that point you're teaching without really doing anything. You know, it's more of, you're leading by example. You're being that leader that, you know, we need to have more leaders out there. Granted, you also need to know how to follow, but you also people also need to know how to lead. If they got something good, great, tell everybody about it, because the more people that know about it, the better off we're all going to be. It's like that rock in the pond, that ripple effect. What we do now can affect people down the road that we may not know about, but it's still going to affect them. Now, we can make it good or we can make it bad. It's still going to affect people. It's how you react to it that's going to also make it good or bad. You throw out the bad, you keep the good, but you got to be aware of that.
Yeah. And keep trying because it's not just a one and done deal. Especially with with trauma that we're talking about before. It's just like, I solved my trauma and good. No, it's just life. It's an up and down.
Yeah.
It's not just fix it, done. I'm going good. I don't need nothing else. I will be happy forever. The night.
Wrong. Yeah.
Wrong. Well, that was an amazing conversation, Penelope. I very loved and enjoy. I'm very thank you for all your work. Thank you for all the first responders. How they're fighting, and they're fighting home too, trying to remain human being, trying to keep that sense of presence, that it's a fight not only out there on the job, but fight internally. And I love all your initiative. I want to know more, all of it. I will put everything down below so everybody can look at it. If you're a first response right now listening, thank you, and please reach out to Penelope for help. And the keys, I think, to conclude is, I'll let you conclude, is to expose yourself, be vulnerable, and let's try to learn. I don't know. What do you say, Penelope?
I totally agree with that. Exposing yourself and opening yourself up is not a bad thing. Part of the reason why we have as many issues as we have is because we're not open enough. And once we realize and we understand and accept that opening up is not a bad thing as a first responder, more first responders and veterans will open up, and people are going to see us in a different light, in a more positive light, because they're going to know that we're not the type to cover up our insecurities, thinking that's the strong way to do it and the right way to do it, when we can be as vulnerable as them, which makes us just as human as they are.
Yeah. First responder are no robot. And thank God they're not robot.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Penelope. I enjoyed this. I think the best conversation I ever had in my podcast. Very enjoyed it very much. Thank you so much.
I had a great time, Nick.
Awesome.